Give it a minute to catch up. Make sure, let me double check that it's showing up. Yes, there I am on Facebook. Yay. Good. Okay, I'm just going to, I don't know what I'm going to talk about for the next minute or two until it, it has to show in your feed, and then people have to pause and watch it. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the comments and I will try to get to it. I do have to get off promptly at 1 because one of my kids, and actually it is my child with an IEP, he has class at 1 and I have to be there for that. He cannot do that independently. Plus he needs my laptop. So there's that. Yeah, today I don't have much to talk about. I'm just going to take your questions, which we haven't done for a while. And I know a lot of people want that. So that's what we're going to do on this April. Hey, did you know? Oh, look, Tina says, I found you. Did you know that today is Take Your Child to Work Day? How about that? When you work at home, I guess every day is Take Your Child to Work Day right now. And if you're not working at home, that means you're an essential worker and probably not a good idea to take your child. So, yet one more holiday that we are not going to celebrate. Just want to let you know, again, while we're waiting for people to, and Tina, I will get to your questions in a minute. I just want to let a few more people hop on in case they have similar questions. But I'm going to be doing this weekly. Thursdays at noon is my plan. If I do have a guest speaker with me who is on the West Coast, we may change it up a bit, but for the most part, our plan is to stay at noon on Thursdays. Next week, please make sure you tune in. I have 2 COPA attorneys who will be on the screen with me, so there will be 3 people. That's pretty exciting. So if you have any questions, I will send out the Google Docs list, or it's actually a Google form to submit questions, because I have a feeling that it's going to be so popular that a lot of people are going to want to ask questions. So we want to try to get as many of them ahead of time as we can. The week after that, I think it's the 7th. So the 30th I know is the COPA attorneys. The 7th is I have a social worker coming on. She's somewhat of an expert in trauma-informed education. So I'm pretty excited about that because that's a topic that is so necessary and gets overlooked. So we will be talking about trauma-informed education. And the week after that, I have someone, I should know this and I don't know her exact job title. But the reason that she's on is because she's promoting a new book that she wrote. And the book, let me get the title. I know I should have had this done ahead of time and I didn't. I'm sorry. It's about high expectations parenting. So it's about parenting a disabled child. Her name's Deb. And I think that the book is it's just called Capable. I should know this. I'm sorry that I don't. Yeah, the book is called Capable. So I'm excited to chat with her. We're not just going to chat about her book, but we're going to talk about her experiences and what she does, and parenting a child with disabilities, and of course, believing that they are capable, right? Presume competence. Okay, I have 12:05 on my computer, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. And Tina was the first person who posted a question. And she's having trouble with IEP goals. So she has several questions listed here, and I've had the chance to look at them and scroll through them. So I'm going to answer them all in one. So writing IEP goals is part art and part science. The science part is that you want to make sure that you have objective, well-defined data and baselines in your present levels section. And the data is from good evals. So if you don't have that information in present levels, you need to ask for more or different evaluations, or you need to ask that they relook at the evaluations that they've completed and include them in present levels, because that's your starting point. I've often said that the most important part of the IEP is the present levels section, because that is the section that drives the rest of the IEP. So you want to look there first. From there, you have to determine priorities as a team and as a parent, because some kids have so many needs. Yeah, sure, ideally, you would have a goal for every item listed in present levels, but some kids are so needy that that's just not even possible. So you have to develop priorities and what's most important for you, for the team to work on. And then, this is the part of the IEP goal writing that is art, in that kind of predicting the future and what's a reasonable expectation for this child to accomplish within the next 12 months with the proper interventions and the proper supports and services. What can reasonably be done and accomplished by this child? Again, that's the part that's, kind of crystal ball. We don't know for sure, but all we can do is our best guess as a team, based on, but you want to base it on the data. So it should be data driven. So you're saying that she's behind in all areas. That, again, look at the data, and what does the data say? Are you talking about, grade level, or what are you talking about? And what can you do reasonably to kind of close that gap within the next year? Again, with the right and appropriate supports and services. So, from there, IEP goals need to be SMART, measurable, time, all that. I do have an IEP goal formula on the blog where it's just basically a blank chart, and you can plug in any skill and add time and whatever, and data, and make it measurable. So, it's, like I said, part art, part science, but you need those concrete, relevant baselines in the present levels, and it needs to be apples to apples. So when you get your progress monitoring reports, or when you get your new IEP the following year, if we're talking about a skill like fluency or reading, you want to make sure that you're comparing fluency to fluency each year, and so on. Okay, I've written a ton about how to write IEP goals and all that on the blog, so take a look over there if you need more information. Heidi says her school district will not let her have parent comments in her words, and she sent them the federal law and they won't respond. Good. I'm glad you sent that to them. If they still won't provide that to you, you can try one more trick, and that is I would resend your parent comments with an email saying, hey, I know I previously asked you to include this on the IEP as part of my parent concerns. If you are not going to do that, please send me a PWN stating why you will not include my parent concerns. And again, if you don't hear from them in, given the pandemic, I'd say if you don't hear from them in 2 to 3 weeks, I would consider filing a state complaint for noncompliance and not following the process. That's about all you can do. You can also file an OCR complaint for the team not allowing meaningful parent participation, which is leading to a denial of FAPE. Okay. Michelle says, I'm sorry, can you please repeat the dates? I will create Facebook events for each one, but it's going to be Thursdays at noon. And next Thursday is the COPA attorneys And Thursday the 7th is trauma-informed education. So that's what's going on the next 2 weeks, but I will create Facebook events for all of them. Even though the Facebook Live does not take place in the event, I create that just so that you get reminders of when it's happening. But the Facebook Lives occur on the page, not the event. I create the events only because it's easy for parents to click going, and then Facebook will remind you to go. And she says, and thank you. You're welcome. Corey, can Comp Ed requests include private contracted tutors? Basically, when you request Comp Ed, you don't list what you're going to spend the money on. You list what should have occurred. Comp Ed is a fund to be spent on educational services, and what that looks like usually is defined in the agreement, in the Comp Ed agreement. But what you're asking for when you ask for Comp Ed is you're asking for compensation. That's why it's called compensatory. You're asking for compensation for education, for the time that the school should have been educating your child appropriately and they weren't. So an easy one would be, let's say your child has OT in their IEP and there's no OT, like the school OT resigned and they haven't filled the position. So your child has not been receiving OT, and for whatever reason, it's April and you just found this out. That's an easy Comp Ed case because it's clearly defined in your IEP that your child's going to receive 30 minutes of OT every cycle. And then you can easily go back and count how many weeks they did not receive it, and you can add a dollar figure onto that. I honestly don't know what a half hour of OT costs if I was going to pay for it privately, but you could very easily do that. Now, if they're not receiving, and this is where you sometimes really need to seek an attorney, because if it's not as cut and dry for that, you really need an attorney's advice, because many of the larger Comp Ed cases include the 6-hour school day. Now, the figure I've seen tossed around is that if your child's, and basically what happens is that, you go to a hearing officer or the attorneys get together and they decide that your child's IEP was completely inappropriate and that for 2 years, this IEP has not been designed to provide your child with FAPE. The figure that I've heard is $25 per hour, but what they do is they do $25 per hour, a 6-hour school day, however many months, and so on. And then, of course, you're talking about much larger numbers then, which is why you want to seek an attorney's assistance. And also because you want to make sure you have the data to prove that your child has not been receiving FAPE for that long. So in a case like right now, where your child might be only receiving, a half hour a few times a week of video learning as compared to a 6 or 7 hour school day, that's something you really need to talk to an attorney with, because it's not going to be so hard to provide, or it's not going to be so hard, I don't think, to prove that FAPE was not being provided right now. But I think it's going to be a little bit harder to prove that the school could reasonably be expected to provide FAPE for that amount of time each day, if that makes sense, given the quarantine. Again, I'm getting so tired of the phrase, we've never lived like anything like this before, but we haven't. So, I mean, unfortunately, I think a lot of hearing officers are going to be empathetic towards schools, and that if parents start filing all these comp ed and due process claims saying that my child didn't receive FAPE during the pandemic, the school's going to say, we were under stay-at-home orders. How could we possibly, be there to teach the child? And we did the best we can. So again, I would really advise you to contact your state's advocacy agency. Every state has one, or an attorney to get more clarification on that. But to answer Corey Merchant, to answer your question more directly, because I kind of went off on a tangent. When you do a comp ed request, you don't ask for the money going forward. You don't tell them necessarily what you're going to spend the money on. That comes as part of the comp ed agreement when the school agrees to a comp ed claim. What you're asking for is going backwards. You're trying to prove that FAPE was not provided. Okay. So, but in your agreement, if you want a tutor, you need to get that in your comp ed claim, because that's one sneaky thing that some of these school district lawyers do. Because if you don't spend comp ed money, and there is always a time limit put on it, and if you don't spend that comp ed money, it goes back to the district. So if your child needs a laptop, or if your household needs Wi-Fi or transportation, all these kind of like little random things that would enable your child to access FAPE, but they're not, like, transportation isn't necessarily on its own an educational service, if that makes sense. You want to make sure that you get those specifics in your comp ed agreement. I need an updated FBA for my son. Should I have that mentioned in the NORAP? It's already listed on the IEP. If it's already under parent concerns, that's fine. What you need is your data trail and your paper trail that you've asked for it. So if it's on the IEP, I don't think that you need it again. I would say I would wait until we're back to school before pushing for an FBA, because so much is going to change. I don't know what our kids are going to act like when they finally go back to school. I mean, who knows? And I mean, the social and academic demands that are going to be put on our kids when they go back to school as compared to now is going to be a tremendous difference. So I wouldn't push for an FBA until we get closer, until they're back and back to stay, because now they keep talking about this second wave, which keeps me up at night. Okay. Let's see. Can you explain what kind of data collection could be for speech and communication goals for kids that are saying just 1 to 2 words? Again, and this is for Sally, go back to the present levels, see what it says for your child under speech and communication, and you're going to have to determine yourself if that's an accurate baseline. And I would just, if you're talking about data collection at home during the shutdown, I would just have a checklist, a monthly checklist of the 2 words, and if they're saying them each day, check yes or no, write yes or no, something like that. In fact, and I am living with this personally, because I just got off a speech session with my own child, and his speech therapist said he's much less verbal than he is in the classroom with her. So my child's basically nonverbal anyway, so I'm not necessarily, that's just not a priority for me right now. ADLs are my bigger priority personally. But I mean, the data collection, it depends on if you're collecting for personal knowledge that you want to have data to present to the team when you go back, Or are you trying to collect data against the IEP so that you have data for the team when you go back, if that makes sense? And if it's based on what's in the IEP, you want to again look at the present levels, look at the baselines and how accurate they are, and keep your data according to that and according to the baselines and the goals outlined in the IEP, and what are the expectations. And don't feel, I mean, reach out to the speech therapist. Everybody's home. She can answer email. It may not be immediate, but I think that the expectation is that teachers and therapists are answering their email with some bit of regularity. And ask her, what kind of data would help you moving forward. They do want to help your kids. By and large, 99% of IEP teams want to help your kid. They're just not always able to, but they do want to see your child make progress. Okay. They didn't go to all this school so that they could help your child not talk, right? So ask her, what would you like me to keep track of while we're on pandemic shutdown? And what exercises can I be doing each day to work on that? Kathleen F. is asking about requesting a one-on-one aid. If you're talking about when we return to school, yeah, certainly you can request a one-on-one aid. You need to have the data to show that your child needs it. And I actually have 2 blog posts outlining that, as far as some ideas and things to think about, some data that you should be collecting as far as requesting a one-on-one aid. And that's on adayinourshoes.com. And I think you just have to search, like, how do I get a one-on-one or a para added to my IEP? If you're talking about now during the shutdown, no, if your child's on, or if your state is on stay-at-home orders, no, it's not realistic to expect someone to come to your home. It might be realistic to ask for, a couple hours a week virtual. If you think your child will respond to that, I would say at least try it. And, my child has responded very well to virtual learning, and we didn't think he would at all. So don't give up on that, because I seriously, in my head, I was like, my child is never going to do online learning, and he loves it. So you just never know. And I would ask for that if you think your child will respond to it. But to ask for it now during the shutdown, I mean, no, we're under stay-at-home orders and only essential. I know we think it's essential, but it's not. I've been fighting to get my son's OT back. School denied it. This is for Sissy. Stated he needed a straight edge, blah, blah, blah. So first of all, they can't remove any services from an IEP without your consent. So removing the OT from the IEP should have been presented to you on a PWN. Look for it, look through all your paperwork, look for something that says prior written notice. Also, Google prior written notice and your state, or IEP prior written notice and your state, because some states do embed prior written notice as part of the final IEP. But no changes at all, additions, subtractions, deletions, anything. No changes can be made to an IEP without parent consent. So somewhere along the line, you either signed something and you weren't aware of what you were signing, or the school did something totally shady and they didn't have you sign the form doing this. You have to figure out which one it is and take it from there. That being said, nothing can be removed from an IEP without data. So you might want to ask for another OT eval. You might want to ask for an individual IEE, independent educational evaluation. If you disagree with the findings of their OT eval, and an independent eval might come up with different results, that he does need OT when the school's OT found that they do not. Requesting an IEE is not something to be done lightly, because if the school is going to deny your request, they have to, per IDEA, they have to file for due process. And that's usually a shocker for many parents that they get this notice in the mail that says, we're denying your request. Oh, and by the way, we filed for due process against you on this issue. So anyway, again, on the blog, I have it all fully explained. You can Google IEE and all that. And actually, I have a post about removing services, and I have a post about parent consent. So you can dig in deeper there. What kind of, Myra, I like this question. What kind of services can we ask for now that it's online learning? My daughter's special ed teacher has not reached out to us. All the work that is assigned is for gen ed, and my daughter's having difficulty with it. Excuse me. Great question. First of all, as always, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So please check your spam folder and things like that if you haven't already done so. She may have tried to reach out and you just didn't receive them, or reach out to her. She might have your email address listed wrong. If it's off by even one letter or one number, you're not going to get the email. So first of all, I would verify that she has not reached out to you and that it wasn't an honest mistake where she thinks she's emailing you and she's sitting at home wondering why you're not responding. So first I would clarify that and kind of go into it with an open mind that she's not being malicious. And again, reach out to her. Now, do you see this little number? Whoops, wrong finger. Why can't I point to the right thing? My camera's backwards. Do you see that number right? There we go. Right there. This is day 41. Okay, 6 weeks. Now, yeah, I went into this screaming at parents to give patience and grace to teachers and schools when it comes to this online learning bit. Now we are 6 weeks into it, and many states, including mine, have now said that this is permanent and we are not going back anytime soon, and not for the rest of the school year. So by now you should have heard something. Just the other day, and again, I'm going to direct you to the blog, but just the other day, I compiled the state guidance for all 50 states as far as what they are expecting schools to do. It's the direct link to your state's COVID-19 guidance and what they expect schools to do. So you can look that up for your state and see what the state is saying as far as what they expect schools to do. And then again, email the special ed teacher, explain to her what's not working and why it's not working. I also would still email the gen ed teacher and say, hey, this is great that you're sending all this stuff out. However, it's not working for us because, and tell her why. And if you don't get answers from them, you start going up the chain of command, and the chain of command is generally after teachers. If you have a IEP case manager, if your state does that, I would email them. I would email the principal, special ed director, pupil services, just keep going up the chain of command until you get an answer. And if you don't hear anything, then you need to start considering the complaint process, which is state compliance complaints. Again, going back to what your state has said they expect from schools. And if your school's not following that, file a state compliance complaint or an OCR complaint for denial of FAPE, which is a great segue into my next question from Audrey. Hi, Audrey. I talked with her many months ago. We were supposed to do something together that fell through. Are state complaints being processed right now? It depends on your state. I hate to give you that vague answer. I have been told personally by my contact at the Pennsylvania, we call it PDE BSE, which stands for Pennsylvania Department of Education, Bureau of Special Ed, which is why we just say PDE BSE. I have a contact there whom I communicate with regularly. He has told me that things are happening. They're a little bit slower, but that everyone is working at home and they are still, still doing what they need to be doing. So I would expect that these things are going to happen slower and that, if your state's website gives you a timeline and says, you should expect to hear something in 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, I would expect it to take longer for a couple of reasons. One being that everybody's working at home, and for example, they may only go into the office once a month to pick up mail, and or not once a month, but once a week to pick up mail. So they may not get it as quickly. The other reason is that due to the economic situation, states are bringing in much less tax revenue. And with less tax revenue means less operating income, and some jobs are going to have to be cut. That's just the way it is. And so there are going to be fewer people working in these departments because we're not buying enough, we're not doing enough as a society to generate the sales tax and the income tax and all the different little taxes that we pay when we go out and spend money like we normally do. The tax revenue isn't there, and you can't just keep paying all these people if you don't have the money. So I would expect that many of them are going to start to get laid off, and that will make things take longer. Okay, let's go down to Lindsay. My school district doesn't share curriculum to allow me to pre-teach or review subject hunt. Are they allowed to do that? Are they allowed? Yes. What does your IEP say? Does your IEP say that you are getting, or that you should be getting pre-teaching and reteaching? If it says that, then yes, they need to make a good faith effort. Department of Ed has been very clear about this, that schools need to make a good faith effort in doing what is reasonable for IEPs during this time. I think providing curriculum, that's reasonable. So again, use your chain of command. I would ask the teacher first. If they're not providing it, go to the principal. Hey, I've asked for this and I've been told I cannot receive it. However, it's in my IEP, or however, my child needs it because, so there you go. Judy, PDE, the new guidance today. Yes, I sent the new guidance out in an email, and I think I posted it on Facebook. I may not. They're saying that evals are not to be done remotely as they are not valid. Yes, it's a 3-page, and it's not like a 3-page big letters. It's a small font. 3 pages is a small font from Pennsylvania Department of Ed. And as I said in the email and the blog post and everywhere else I posted it, yes, as far as being official, it only applies to Pennsylvania. However, I think that most states are going to follow suit if they haven't already developed this language. And also, if you are communicating with your team, there's a lot of good language that you can extract from what they've said to kind of use in letters and correspondence. A lot of people go, oh, you're so great at writing letters. But you know what? A lot of times I copy a paragraph from this and a paragraph from that. And there's really no need to reinvent the wheel. So I think that there's a lot of good guidance in there for all parents to take a look at. And she also said about the Facebook stars, which, I meant to say this at the beginning of the broadcast and I didn't. But for the past several weeks, I've been logging into Facebook, and when I go to my page, they're like, "Hey, tell your page followers to give you stars, and on your next Facebook Live, your page is eligible for stars, and for each star, I get a penny. Whoop-de-doo." But I thought, hey, a penny is a penny, and they add up. And I thought that a star was just going to be like a like where there's a like and a heart and all that stuff. I thought that there was going to be a star there that you could click the star. I didn't know you had to buy them, and I don't feel right about asking you to buy things from Facebook. So if you would like to buy stars and give them to me, great, I get a penny. And if not, that's fine too. But it is a way, if you like Facebook Lives and you do watch a lot of different creators online, it is a way for you to reward them. Okay. Sarah B asks, how can you prove they aren't receiving services previously determined in their IEP? Well, the onus shouldn't be on you as a parent to prove that you are not receiving the services. Put the onus on them to prove that your child is receiving the services. So ask for session notes or session recaps or whatever the case may be. You might have to do a full FERPA request. Again, on the blog, I have a template letter on how to do a FERPA request, but just ask for that information. And if the services have not been being provided, they really shouldn't have notes saying that they are provided, right? Now you said, I'm just thinking, you said services, so my brain automatically went to related services like PT, OT. You might actually be talking about supports and not services. Yes, no, maybe so. You wrote this about 20 minutes ago. I'm trying to catch up. So if you're talking about supports and not related services, ask your child if your child's able to do that. Ask for a home to school daily communication log. Basically, it's going to, again, put it on them to prove that it is being provided, and don't be afraid to send an email that says, hey, our IEP says this. However, my child says that he or she, is not receiving this. Sorry, I take this medicine. Did I tell you guys I have shingles? I know I did, and it's miserable. But I take this medicine and it makes me feel weird. When a student has a chronic illness and is out of school, how would the committee help the student to catch up and to be sure to access the curriculum? Michelle, I would ask for a temporary homebound placement, which is kind of a moot point right now, but homebound is designed to be temporary, ideally. And that the child can recover and return to school. But that is something that you need to make list all your concerns in a parent concerns letter and ask for an IEP meeting. And you know your child best, so think about what will work for them to help them catch up. My top 10 tips for families for SWD. What's SWD? Let me Google that quick. SWD. Social Welfare Department, Spotted Wing, Drosophila. I don't know what SWD is. Sorry, I don't know what SWD is, so I can't answer that. Judy says when she looked into speech therapy in her area, it was $100 per hour, similar cost for therapy. Or for social skills therapy. And then she has a post there about other things that she looked into. So again, $25 an hour probably isn't going to cut it for most kids is basically the point of Judy's comment, I think. But again, comp ed looks backwards. It doesn't look forwards. So you want to get with an attorney because you're going to need to prove that FAPE was not being provided and that they owe you for that. Let's see, I'm trying to go back to Sally's question because she clarified and now I can't find the question. Oh, can you explain? Her first question was, can you explain what kind of data collection for speech and communication? And then she clarified and said, I mean, data collection in the school that they shared to me. If you don't understand the data reports or the progress monitoring reports that you're getting from the school, just ask for help and ask for that specific provider to explain it to you. Or a lot of times, you know what? I don't have a magic answer and people are like, I can't believe you knew that. But you know what? A lot of times you can go online to Google it and the protocols and things will come up for a lot of these assessments and explain them to you. If not, I have found that like there are a lot of speech therapists and OTs and behaviorists and whatnot who have their own blogs, and they will take the time in their blogs to explain different things to you or different things to parents in plain language. I mean, I don't know, people think I have some like magic curtain here behind my closet, but I don't. A lot of times it's just, I've just gotten really good at Googling what I need and I find what I'll just find that specific data. I'll look for the acronyms, I'll look for the terms that they use, and a lot of it is just putting it all together and kind of assembling that puzzle. So I would start with asking the person on the team to explain it to you, and if not, you're just going to have to keep looking for the answers yourself. Visually impaired student, child missed services to the person being off medical leave. Yes. If the provider's on medical leave, yes, something should have been done. Just make sure you have all the data, the email that you got that said the person's out and all that. So there you go. Carrie, my son doesn't have an IEP yet. He's supposed to start kindergarten in the fall. We just started assessments. What's happening with assessments? How do we complete these during the shutdown? My state has said that we are not doing online assessments or online evaluations, that they are not valid. So ours in the state of Pennsylvania have been put on hold, and it's going to be a nightmare when we get back. I can't even imagine. And I feel bad and take a moment of silence for the providers, because all these, PTs, OTs, speech therapists, everyone from March through June, if you think of how many evaluations they were going to complete and how many they were supposed to complete in that amount of time, and all of those evaluations have been pushed back to, at the earliest, September. It is going to be a nightmare when we go back. They are going to have such a backlog, because then they're going to have their September students and their October students. It's going to take us a long time to recover from this. I don't know how else to put it. Again, that tired phrase of, we've never seen anything like this in our lifetime, but we haven't. So I don't know, you want to look up what's being done for your state, but my state is not doing them. And I can't even imagine what's going to happen in the fall with the backlog. It's going to be a nightmare. My phone is never going to stop ringing. But I don't have any answers. The only answer I have is that you could contact your team or contact your IEP coordinator and ask them, hey, I am willing to, what I'm trying to say is do an IEE on your own and ask if they will accept that in lieu of their assessments. Given this situation, they might be more likely to accept an IEE as the evaluation, because they are just going to have such a huge backlog when we go back. So, okay, what will happen to ESY? Good question. I have no idea. I was hopeful that my kid was going to go back maybe around July 4, give or take. And that ESY, of course, not regular school, but I was hopeful that maybe after the July 4th holiday that my kid's school would return. And now my friends are like, no way, don't expect that. You'll be lucky if they go back in September. So, nobody knows. Our president wants to open the country today. And some of the experts are saying, like I saw these medical experts this morning who track data like this and predict models and, all that stuff we've been hearing. And they're saying that the state of Texas shouldn't consider opening before June 19th, and the state of Florida shouldn't consider opening before such and such a date. And we just don't know. I don't know. Can we ask the school to address an IEP behavior goal? If you're talking about at home, certainly. And I would talk with whoever developed the goal and whoever developed the SDIs to go along with that goal, what you can do to adapt it. And again, revisit your IEP, look at what it says, and be solution oriented and say, okay, what can I do at home to mimic this, or how can I modify this to adjust at home? I also have actually to go on behavior, if you go to A Day in Our Shoes, if you go to the Facebook page, and then on the left-hand side, I know that's on the screen, that's on the right, but on the left-hand side of the Facebook page, click on videos. Look for the Facebook Live I did a few weeks ago with Dr. Amanda Kelly. She is also known as Behavior Babe, and you can also visit her Facebook page. Just look for Behavior Babe. But she's a BCBA and PhD, and she has all kinds of stuff. And actually, she lives in Hawaii, lucky her, but she lives in Hawaii. So she is very much used to doing a lot of this stuff online and video because a lot of her clients live on different islands and she can't island hop all the time. So she's used to doing a lot of this stuff on video, and has some really good solutions. So you can check that out for your behavior goals. Myra, well, what is that website? If you're talking about my website is A Day in Our Shoes. Sarah B, I'm reading yours right now. Not normal circumstances. I'm plan time. Not that I was looking for it. I have no way. Okay, if she's not making progress, yes, that's your data. And make sure that you have the data collection and the progress monitoring reports to show that she's not making progress. Obviously, that's a little hard to demonstrate right now, but if you want to make it a priority when you go back, again, look at the present levels, make sure that those baselines that they're using are accurate. Then you want to look at the goals. Are they reasonable? And then the supports and services, are they sufficient? Or, and just keep your data and do a parent concerns letter asking for a meeting to revise the IEP. And Tina says, I know the stars cost money. I know. I didn't know that. And you know what? Facebook didn't tell me that, and they probably should have, which is annoying. Do I have a Patreon account? No, I just, you know what? The only other thing you can do is go to the blog. If you'd like to support me, go to the blog. And the only way that we get money is myself and what I'm able to help out with the other admins is based on ad revenue on the blog. So just visit the blog once in a while, and that's it. Is it right that speech therapy comes 1,620 minutes one time yearly? Yeah, I would ask for that to be spelled out. I get it that that's how they're doing the math for their own accounting purposes, but it's not a huge ask to have that spelled out. Okay, so Gloria is now clarifying that SWD is students with disabilities, which is weird because I've never heard that acronym before. So let me go back and find her question about SWD. Sorry, I'm scrolling up. Why can't I find it? All right, I cannot find it. I'm sorry. Take the stranger test. Yes, and that's a great point. Thank you, Judy. If anyone should be able, ideally, in a perfect world, if you have a great IEP, anyone should be able to pick it up, read it, know your child, everything about them, and be able to implement that IEP. So if a stranger or you moved to a different school and they got that IEP and there was something left out that they wouldn't know how to do, that's something that you need clarified. Christina, assigning intervention. So the first thing that everybody needs to do, and Judy did post the link somewhere here in the comments, but the first thing you need to do is look at what your state has said as far as what they expect schools to do during this time. That's going to be your starting point. Because it's very difficult to hold a school accountable to something that the state has said you don't need to do that, if that makes sense. if your daughter is getting 240 minutes of pull out a week and an aid, obviously those kinds of things aren't going to be possible right now. I would be solution oriented, and you're going to have to analyze this yourself as far as what are your priorities right now for your child. Is it academics? Is it ADLs? And if it's, a little bit of both, like what do you want her to maintain? Is it her reading ability? Is it her math ability? Is it, what do you want her to maintain and do during this time? You're going to have to prioritize that, communicate that to the school, and again, work with them on solutions on how you can do this with her during this time. Pennsylvania, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but because I know only about 10% of my followers are actually from Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania has been very good about communicating what they expect schools to do during this time, and what schools don't have to do. How to approach it, just open communication. Email the teacher, email your case manager, email someone and say, hey, this isn't working. We are 6 weeks into this and my child is regressing because, and I did do another Facebook Live early on in the pandemic with Dr. Monica McHale from the Learning Disabilities Association of America. Again, if you look at the Facebook page, go to videos, and you will see myself and Monica. We did a whole hour on regression and documenting regression and things to look for. So that might be something you want to look at. But if she can't do independent work, okay, why isn't that working? Explain that to them, and what will work. And if that needs to be you, but you are not available because you have to work, what is going to work? Can they provide someone virtually? Or is it going to be a case of, you can do a half hour in the evening, but that's about it? You're going to have to be creative and think about what is going to work for your child and present that to the school. Oh, top 10 tips for families of students with disabilities. Yeah, I don't have enough time to get into that right now because I only have 8 minutes left before my son's class starts. But if you go to adayinourshoes.com, that's just way too broad. I have a ton of advice on the pandemic. I have a top 10 list of worst IEP advice. I have a top 10 list of parent mistakes that parents make during the IEP process. I have over 500 posts, and a lot of them are lists of, the 10 best this or the top 10 that. So top 10 tips for families of students with disabilities is just something that's too broad. I wouldn't even know where to dig in, except that my number one tip for parents has always been to engage in the process year round and jump in with both feet. And too many parents I hear from, oh, my IEP meeting's tomorrow. What should I do? What should I ask for? That tells me that you're not engaged in the process, because I can't tell you, I'm the worst person to ask for advice the day before your IEP meeting because I will completely overwhelm you. When people go, oh, give me a high level IEP. No, I don't do high level IEPs. I get you into the weeds real quick. So my number one tip is engage in the process, learn it, commit to it, and commit to being the best IEP advocate and learning as much as you can. You don't want your IEP team only thinking about your IEP once a year, so neither should you. I don't want to have this knowledge base. I know more about IEPs than most people on the planet. There's probably only a few thousand of us who know as much about IEPs as I do. And I would give up anything to not have to know that, but I have to know it. And it's just a commitment I made that I have to do this, so do it well. Okay, rant over. Kristen says she has a friend who did an online eval for speech, and they're doing interventions online. And the Speech Therapy Association, or whatever it's called, whatever the national body of speech therapists, they have said that that is okay and that they are approving that. So we were told, Keisha says they were told that ESY will continue to be distance learning. I think a lot of us are going to be told that. So, and Judy says some evals can be done remotely. Yes, they can, but according to the state of PA, they cannot. So it is what it is. If your kid is receiving less services than what is stated in the IEP, would you be entitled to comp ed? I mean, yes, looking at that question in a vacuum, I would say yes. But the problem is that you have to prove that, and you have to prove that your child received fewer services than what was in the IEP, and that it affected them to their detriment. So again, that's why I always say seek an attorney, even if only for the free consult. They can tell you if you have the data that you need to get this. Let's see. If your kid is receiving fewer services during COVID-19, would you be entitled to comp ed? States and the Department of Ed have put comp ed on the table, and they've mentioned it, that for some kids, that's going to be the remedy. I don't know how that's going to play out. None of us knows how that's going to play out. That's a great segue for me to promote next week's Facebook Live with the two attorneys from COPA, because we are going to talk about that. So tune in next Thursday at noon, and I would feel much more comfortable with an attorney giving you the answer to that than me, because we don't know. So I don't know what they're going to say. I'm anxious to hear what they have to say, because again, this is new circumstances. Let's see. Thank you, Andrea. Andrea says, I always click on the ads when I'm there. That's great. If you go to my blog and click on the ads, which I think per my terms of service, I'm not allowed to ask you to click on ads. I will just tell you that if you do click on the ads, I get like 3 pennies instead of 1. So if there's an ad that appeals to you, hey. Oh, good. Judy posted the links to the videos. Gloria says, thank you. I will check your website. Thank you. And I have 2.5 minutes left before Kevin has school. Gloria says, thank you. Paula says, thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in. See, my camera is backwards. Day 41 of quarantine. We will see you on day 48 of quarantine. Of course, you'll see me in the group. Typing and responding, but you won't see my face and my really bad hair. But I will see you next Thursday at noon. Again, COPA attorneys next Thursday, noon. See you then. Bye, and have a great weekend.